In the dead of winter 1922, an isolated Bavarian farmhouse became the site of a brutal mass murder. Behind the small hamlet of Kaifeck stood a single farmhouse known as Hinterkaifeck. 6 people inside would be found murdered, and the world would be left with a chilling mystery that endures a century later. Living on the farm were 6 people: Andreas and Cecilia Gruber, the elderly grandparents, their daughter Victoria, Victoria's 2 children, little Cecilia just 7 years old, and Joseph, a toddler, and finally Maria, the maid who had only started working there the very day of the murders. On the surface, the Grubers seemed like an ordinary family. But whispers in the village told a different story: tales of family tensions, secrets, and disturbing rumors about Victoria's relationships. These shadows of gossip would later add even more mystery to what happened at Hinterkaifeck. The farm was far from neighbors, surrounded by forests and fields. Some villagers said the Grubers were hardworking and private. Others whispered darker rumors of family arguments, scandals, and even abuse. But no one in the village could have imagined what was about to happen. In the days before the murders, strange things began happening at Hinterkaifeck. Andreas, the grandfather, noticed unfamiliar footprints in the snow leading from the forest to the farm, but none leading back. He also claimed to hear footsteps in the attic at night, though no one was found when he searched. Neighbors reported that the family spoke about these odd occurrences, but they stayed on the farm, brushing it off as nothing more than their imagination. Tragically, these signs may have been warnings of what was to come. On the evening of March 31, 1922, the farmhouse at Hinterkaifeck became the stage for a nightmare. To this day, no one knows exactly how the events unfolded, but investigators pieced together a chilling theory. It seems that someone, or perhaps more than one person, managed to lure the family out to the barn one by one. Imagine the scene. Andreas, the stubborn grandfather, hears a noise outside and goes to investigate. Inside the dark barn, he is ambushed and struck down with a heavy blow to the head, likely from a mattock, a farming tool similar to a pickaxe. The force crushed his skull instantly. Then, perhaps moments later, his wife Cecilia goes to check on him. She too is murdered in the same brutal way. Victoria, their daughter, follows, and then finally little 7-year-old Cecilia. The child fought for her life. Evidence showed she pulled out tufts of her own hair in terror before succumbing to her wounds. Back inside the farmhouse, the horror continued. 2-year-old Joseph, sleeping in his crib, was killed. And the maid, Maria, who had just begun her very first day working for the family, was slain in her bed. She had been on the farm less than 24 hours. Days passed before anyone noticed something was wrong. The family had not been seen in church. Victoria's daughter missed school. Mail piled up. Neighbors grew suspicious. On April 4th, several villagers finally entered the farm. What they found inside would haunt them for the rest of their lives. In the barn, the bodies of Andreas, Cecilia, Victoria, and young Cecilia were discovered, stacked and partially covered with straw and hay. In the house, Joseph lay dead in his cradle, a blanket pulled over him. Maria, the maid, was lifeless on her bed, still in the clothes she had worn to sleep. 6 people wiped out in a single night. But here is the most disturbing detail. The killer had not simply left the farm after committing the crime. Evidence suggested that someone stayed there. Livestock had been fed. Meals were eaten from the kitchen. The chimney showed signs of firewood being burned. And at night, faint smoke was seen rising from the chimney by passing neighbors. Whoever committed the murders lived at Hinterkaifeck for days afterward, surrounded by the bodies of their victims. To this day, no one can explain why. Police questioned dozens of suspects, from traveling laborers to disgruntled neighbors. Yet each lead seemed to dissolve into nothing. Some investigators believed the murders were the work of a passing vagrant, someone who stumbled upon the farm, killed in cold blood, and vanished into the night. Others pointed fingers closer to home. Neighbors whispered of jealousies and grudges, of arguments with Andreas Gruber, who was known in the community as harsh and often cruel. Could revenge have driven someone nearby to commit such a brutal act? But the darkest and most disturbing rumors came from inside the farmhouse itself. Victoria, Andreas's daughter, was said to have endured an abusive and controlling relationship with her father. In hushed tones, villagers speculated that her youngest son, little Joseph, was not fathered by her late husband, but by Andreas himself. If true, the implications were horrifying. Could these hidden family secrets have led to murder? Was someone seeking to silence the shame of incest? Or was Andreas himself the intended target? Another theory suggests it was a robbery gone wrong. Some money was missing from the farmhouse, but strangely, expensive valuables were left untouched. Why would a thief leave behind gold and jewelry, but slaughter an entire family in such a calculated way? Years turned into decades. Each new generation of detectives reopened the dusty files, hoping that fresh eyes would finally see what others had missed. Even modern forensic testing was applied to evidence from the scene. Yet time had rotted away the truth, leaving DNA samples too degraded to provide answers. To this day, the Hinterkaifeck murders stand as one of Germany's most chilling unsolved crimes. A family of 6, slaughtered in their home, their bodies hidden in the barn, and the killer vanishing without a trace. The questions remain: was it a drifter? A neighbor seeking vengeance? Or was the evil born inside the very walls of Hinterkaifeck itself? The answers may be forever lost, buried with the victims in the cold soil of 1922 Bavaria. The farmhouse was eventually torn down, but the murders left a wound on Hinterkaifeck that never truly healed. Locals say that for years after, no crops would grow properly on that soil, as if the land itself had been poisoned by the blood spilled there. Children refused to walk past the spot, and some villagers swore they still heard strange sounds on quiet nights. Footsteps crunching in the barn or whispers carried through the wind. Even today, more than a century later, the case continues to haunt investigators and true crime enthusiasts alike. Endless theories have been proposed. Was it a drifter who stumbled upon the farm? A neighbor with a hidden grudge? Or was the evil seated inside the family itself, born from the shadows of abuse and silence? But with every passing year, the truth grows colder. The final answers may already be gone, buried with the Grubers beneath Bavarian soil. And so the mystery of Hinterkaifeck remains, not just as a brutal murder case, but as a chilling reminder of how darkness can linger long after the last candle has burned out. It stands as one of the most haunting unsolved crimes in history. This was the story of the Hinterkaifeck murders. If you want more chilling unsolved crimes, subscribe to Crimora Files, where the darkness is never far away.